Hi, you are live with Lila and
Patrick Kirby.
Hi, Patrick Kirby.
How are you?
That you're here.
I'm so glad I'm here. I've been looking forward to this for a very long time. It's been on my calendar for way too long, like a kid at Christmas time.
Yes.
And I'm excited today is here.
This is just about the same thing as Christmas because there are so many nonprofit organizations out there who seek gifts. And yet, at this time, who feels comfortable asking anyone for anything?
I know this is really one of those crossroads that nonprofit organizations or individuals who are trying to help nonprofit organizations are at, which is we desperately need funding, but holy crap, is anybody interested in helping us with said funding? And the answer is to that second question is yes, but it's the way you talk about it, the way you approach it, the way that you describe the impact, and really trying to connect with people who really love your mission or potentially could. And then explaining them that the need is great, here's what the impact is, and communication more than ever is super important right now. So I'm glad we're talking about this today.
Yeah, I'm glad you called that out. That's a good plug for what I do. For those of you who are just tuning in or who have been living under a rock, what I do is help people to say things better. And what Patrick Kirby does is helps people and organizations to do good better. What does that mean? What does it mean to do good? How are you defining doing good and how well people are doing it without your help?
Right. Well, there's countless nonprofits. There's in the millions throughout the country. Here in North Dakota, where I'm from, here in flyover country, there's over 5,100 nonprofits in this state.
In North Dakota?
Yeah, and there's less than 1 million people who live here. So the amount of people, yeah, I know. So the amount of people doing great things, the amount of people doing the things the government can't, shouldn't, and won't do are incredible. They do good work, except they're usually hamstrung by either a scarcity mindset or they don't understand the sort of how to ask people for money to have that help there. And so I say consistently, I know that you do good. I'm just going to try to help you do good better. And so this is not a slam on anybody who's doing great work and who's dedicating their lives to the thing. They're awesome. I just have been in the field so long that I know how to tweak either messaging or attitudes or coming up with creative solutions to help them fundraise more effectively and therefore the better add on to the do good.
Let me ask you a question about that attitude. Because this came up this morning in a coaching call that I was watching where people were talking about scarcity mindset, in quotes, and that people who have it don't think they have it. People who have limiting beliefs don't think they have them. So coaches who are trying to reach people with limiting beliefs need to use different words because those people believe that their beliefs are real, are true, are the facts. So how do you identify, what are some symptoms that people watching this at home or from their office can identify in their behavior that their attitude might need a tweak?
Right. Great. So if you're a fundraiser or you're a nonprofit leader and you're about to pick up the phone to connect with a donor and your internal monologue says, I don't know if now's the right time to just have a conversation. That alone is a signal that you need to just bowl through and call. And I think people really misinterpret what fundraising is. I think people think fundraising is you are just consistently asking people for money and things at all times. Fundraising is not that. It's not. Fundraising is relationship building. And so what you're doing when you pick up the phone is asking them a question on how they are doing, what they're feeling. Are you asking right questions to gauge whether it is the appropriate time to make an ask? A mentor of mine said the most prolific thing a number of years ago, and it's never ask for a major gift unless you know the name of your donor's dog.
I think that's a great, Can you define major gift for those who don't know who are watching?
Something along the lines, $2,500, $5,000, $10,000, whatever that looks like to you. And it varies different on organizations. But the real reason behind that and why that always stuck with me forever was that means you are asking questions other than the size of somebody's checkbook. Or the amount of money that's in their bank account.
Why is that important for relationship building? I mean, we shouldn't have to say it, but because we have to say it, please.
Yeah, it's not because you need to be concerned with what they feel rather than you. It is not about your need to have as an organization.
Right.
It's about your donors' need to give. And so the way that you communicate is asking them questions about themselves so that you can align your messaging with exactly how they align themselves.
Right.
And so the Fundraising Limited belief is when you pick up your phone and you are about to push send and you say, maybe now's not a good time, what you're saying to yourself internally is, they don't want to hear from me. I'm just going to bother them. And I don't think that's the first step in your brain that you need to conquer, because people do want to connect. We've been sheltered in place for months. We're now scared to go out. We can't do that, right? We want to make human connection. And the only way that you do that is to actually pick up the phone or actually communicate directly with somebody. And that first step is you have to understand that people want to communicate. They want to talk with you. They want to understand. They want to help. They don't know how. And so you have to communicate with them in order.
What a great opportunity. If someone is saying, I feel helpless about the way the world is going,
yes.
The entire continent of Australia is on fire,
yes.
right?
Yes.
There are people who are losing their lives who didn't deserve to, when they didn't have to, all over the world for different reasons, whether it's cancer or extra violence or I forget what it's called, excessive force, or whatever it is, that there are things that happen all the time that are the reasons why nonprofits do what they do, right?
Yep.
You live in a world that's not perfect. And so you've decided to take action. You formed a nonprofit to make your kind of change in the world. And all you need to do is connect with those other people who want to make a change in the world your way too. So how do you find those people?
Yeah, you're helping them. And so that's why I think this is so important, is that you are really doing amazing work. Not only those you're serving, not only you're making the impact you're making in the community, but you're helping individuals to give. And giving feels good. We're pre-programmed.
Powerless.
Yes, we're pre-programmed. It makes us feel great. And so what you're doing is you're helping people facilitate their desire to do good through a monetary amount at your organization. But the only way you're going to figure out what makes them feel great about themselves is by asking those proper questions and having that engagement piece.
I have a comment here from Justin Douglas. Hi, Justin, and thanks to everybody who's tuning in live on LinkedIn. Some people are going to be coming into the Say Things Better channel on YouTube, and there might be a delay. So hello to you whenever you get this.
Yeah.
Justin says, one of the best fundraising hits I got was when a fundraiser sent me a personal message with the mail shot. That changed everything, and I upped my donations significantly. What is a mail shot? Do you know what that term is? If not, then Justin, you have to clarify. I want to know what you're talking about.
Yeah, I know. That's interesting, though. Personal. Here's the thing. I think it's a personal message, regardless of whether you, whatever platform this is. Messenger, email, phone call, text message is really important right now. People are on their phones constantly. We're always online.
Push notifications on things. Yeah.
But if you know your name, right? If I said to you, hi, sir or madam, would you like to engage? Know your name.
Funny story. So regarding sir or madam, LinkedIn, I love you. Thank you for letting us go live on your platform today. Please, if you're listening to this message, take this to your digital marketing team and give them some helpful feedback. I did one of those, those ads that show up like claim your $50 in ad credit. So I claimed my $50 in ad credit, and I went through this process, and I selected, I'd be interested in knowing more about sponsored emails, this and that. I got from LinkedIn, from submitting something connected to my profile, dear sir or madam, I was like, no, why would you do that? You already have the data fields, and I have an e-commerce background. I know you can map my name from here to here.
One of the big things where people are very reluctant to give is if you do not have some sort of personal tie to it. You can now, again, if you wanted to spend 10 hours on the phone every day calling the entire population within your network, you're bound to get some yeses by people just saying, yeah, sure, I'll give you $10. If you want significant gifts, if you want legacy gifts, if you want gifts that are going to change the trajectory of your organization in massive amounts, you have to connect people on another level. That's why thank you notes are so important. Not just thank you notes for the gift. Everybody's required to give you a thank you note when you give. Otherwise, you're not going to get any money back, right? What about thanking people for what they do outside of giving to your organization? What if you're paying attention? Yeah. What if you're paying attention and recognizing the good they're doing, right?
So what, for example?
So let's just say we just had an election here in Fargo in North Dakota last night. So there's a couple of people who ran for office and lost. I think if you're a nonprofit organization and you know that individual, a simple thank you note for the act of running. Yeah. A lot of people could run for office, but very few do. Congratulations on you giving it your best. We're really proud of you and really appreciative of you being in support of our organization.
On the campaign too.
How long does that take on a note? What's the long-term effect of that? The long-term effect is you paid attention. You paid attention and made that personal connection, and you didn't make an ask. So the next time your appeal comes in the mail, the next time your email comes up, the next time you do an online fundraiser, they remember the one thing that nobody else did, which was pay attention to their personal and and you made it personal. That's the best part of it. Yep.
Everybody's decisions are personal. Right? Just especially decisions of where to spend a significant amount of money. If we're talking about major gifts here, and look, you can talk about crowdfunding and raise, as a strategy. I know that you've got significant social media experience for nonprofits as well. We can address that maybe later when we talk about social media and connecting en masse and at scale. But when you want those personal relationships to give you those major gifts, you have to make them personal. And what's more personal than acknowledging a person?
What's more personal than taking hard-earned money that you don't have to give, and you make a conscious decision as an individual to give that to an organization? You have to. It has to be personal. You have to be connected. It's even more personal.
That it's a nonprofit, because we spend our money all the time and often don't think about it. People will spend $2,500 in a weekend shopping. And it's not that personal. They just kind of wanted some stuff, or were bored with their wallpaper, or thought something was cute, or maybe, things get more personal when they get tied to a mission. Even if that's, let me support a small business, that's more personal. Yep. When they're supporting a nonprofit, it's even more personal. It says something more about them and their beliefs. So how do you find new people who are tied to the same values and causes that you are as an organization?
That's great. So there's a couple ways. One, telling your story to as many people as possible, whether that is going live on a LinkedIn or a YouTube channel or Facebook or whatever social media platform that you have as an organization, whether that's doing today, virtual events, virtual conferences, virtual speaking engagements. If you've got a local Lions Club or whatever your social clubs are that meet every week, because they still do, getting access into that to tell your story. And you're not telling a story for the sake of asking for money. You're telling your story for the sake of connecting the impact that you make to somebody who goes, you know what? I had a son or a daughter who did this, or I had a nephew who had this, right? You need to link values. So they need to resonate with you as an individual. You're right. They build a relationship, but then all of a sudden they say, okay, well, if you are doing this programming in the community, right? If you're doing this impact, great. But you need to tell people that, because most people don't know who you are. And as much as you have as many likes and things on Facebook, great, but nobody knows. So telling that story as many people as possible. The other one too is getting other people to spread the message for you. We tell clients
influencers.
Right. We tell clients all the time. Yeah.
Great idea.
I just hope there's one on here that would. But we tell clients all the time. The most important thing, third-party endorsement is exponentially better than first-party solicitation. And I'll say that again because I think it bears repeating.
That is important. Shout that out loud.
Third-party endorsement is exponentially more important than first-party solicitation. The reason is, if you work for a nonprofit and you go out and you try to solicit gifts, that's your job. If somebody says, I don't really have a strong connection, but what I really do is understand that this nonprofit does great work, you should support it too, and they don't get paid by the organization, that holds more weight in the community. It's the same way.
Because they're not benefiting from it, so they're not selling. Why do we trust things that do not feel like selling?
It's interesting because there's no strings attached to it, right? It's somebody who's on a review on Amazon, for example, right? We trust a 5-star review on Amazon or Lowe's or whatever the store we're buying stuff on more than we do our own research, because we are trusting.
It says verified purchase. Yeah,
exactly. So that's really the key to this whole thing, is getting people on board. So take your biggest and best supporters and you bring them in and you say, all right, what do you love best about this organization and why do you give? What can we do to get your circle of friends to do this? Or how can we empower you? Oh, yeah.
You mean like call them up, text them, email them, and say to them personally, hey, Justin Douglas, who, by the way, is saying that a mail shot is a piece of mail, like a piece of paper in the mail, cut off to you. Co-sign. Yes. Props to those who send handwritten letters. I use Marianne Alt at Cultivated Clients to handwrite my notes because you don't want my handwriting, but I still want to send you a handwritten note. So I just sent her, this is what it says, here's who to send it to, and she writes it and sends it, and it's the best. I'll put her name in the comments here. But yes, so if you were to say, hey, Justin Douglas, your support has meant so much to this organization. Here's what we were able to accomplish with your help, and then name some specific things so it's not about money. Like if you know somebody has given $10, you can automate a campaign that says, your $10 printed 45 programs, or provided, 6 minutes of closed captioning on our social media videos or something, whatever that is, for small scale. Something bigger, your gift enabled us to do a reconstruction of a wing where children will be learning, or to make ourselves handicapped accessible. And specifically, your level yielded this result. So because you have had such an impact, we wanted to just simply ask you, not for more, but for why.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. A lot of organizations are going to listen to this and say, well, I don't know what $10 does. That's your starting point, right? So you need to kind of take a peek at things and say, all right, well, where does our money go and how much makes an impact where and when? That's a wonderful line to begin with as a conversation internally, so that when you do have a conversation with a Justin, with a Phil or a Dave or a Pam or a Carla, you understand exactly what their gift did, and you can connect it to something tangible so that they can rack around their brain. They're like, wow, this is great. Now your conversation begins. How else can we, talk to your friends or your family or your connections, some people who would like to feel as good as you do about giving to us? Are there individuals who like, let's just say if you're a shelter, an animal shelter, are there individuals that who have dogs and cats and animals that they've picked up from a shelter, or they've rescued from a shelter? Who else would like to hear this message? What can we give you to showcase how you love our organization? If they give you money on a regular basis, they love you. They love you.
What can we give you? Do you mean can we give you social media collateral? Can we give you this that you can post, this like seal that you can put on your website? This thing that you can add to your LinkedIn profile? Can we tag you in a post and thank you publicly? Can we tag and thank your friends that you've nominated and say, Justin Douglas, I'm using Justin Douglas now for this whole episode. Justin Douglas has told us that you are a friend to animals, and we want to shout you out for doing, the same good work that we're all in it for.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And even better, if Justin does this on his own, and Justin grabs the material and says, hey, FYI, I support this organization because they mean a lot to me. I know that what good works they do. Maybe he becomes a volunteer, a board member, a lead on a committee. So asking your best and biggest and brightest supporters to talk about you in public makes your messaging explode. It's the same way that you want people to share and like all of your social media posts, is because it reaches a different audience. And that's the same thing with fundraising, is because you will tap into somebody going, I never knew about this organization. Thanks for connecting us. And all of a sudden they are on your mailing list, and they read your stories, and they see the impact, and then they themselves become donors, and the cycle repeats itself 10 times over. And that's really the key is communicating and using your best advocates and your best supporters to go forth and apostatize for you as well.
Oh, apostatize, proselytize, evangelize. I love the words. The vocabulary here is making my knees tingle.
I love it.
So, that's such a good point about sharing stories. People really connect with stories more than they connect to, in general, here's the problem.
Yeah.
Why do stories about what you're doing and what you're achieving connect to people more than just educating them on the statistics of an issue?
Yeah, I think a lot of people, most people are story learners. So that's how we're born. That's why we created stories in the first place, is to pass on information to generation to generation.
Mm-hmm.
And it's fine to say your $50 is going to do this, this, and this. It's fine. People want to know that when you're writing grants and you're doing something that's technical and you want to show a 990 form and you want to, that's fine.
Mm-hmm.
To move people and so that they can build their own brain around why you do things in the first place. And it goes back to the why, is do they have a sense of how do they connect to your mission or your act of doing in the community? And that's through stories. It's imagine yourself in this situation, and all of a sudden your brain now says, do I have enough food? Do I have shelter? Do I have basic needs? Am I educated properly? Whatever. You lay the groundwork, and all of a sudden their imagination goes and you personalize everything, right? So now imagine if you woke up and you lost your job and you weren't able to provide for your family of 4. Where would you go and what would you do? And you'd probably be looking around saying, I don't know where I'm either going to choose to keep my lights on or I'm going to choose groceries this month. What am I going to do? And so all of a sudden now you put them into a story mode. And what would I do? What decision tree that I would make myself? And all of a sudden now you're not even listening to all the dirty details of the story, but you're now connecting to the solution, which the nonprofit you are running provides, right?
The solution. Yeah.
And that solution is we provide a service for food or shelter or whatever those basic needs are. Well, how do I help? And that's what you internally ask yourself. Well, how can I be a part of the solution? Well, it's a monetary donation. It's volunteering. It's time, talent, or treasure, whatever that is. Now you associate yourself with imagining yourself being a part of that solution. That imagining part of the solution becomes your path to give.
And that's the help.
That's the help.
When
right
you
there.
take somebody who's desperate to make a change in the world, but they don't know how, you give them the how, you give them the solution to their own feelings of inadequacy, their own feelings of helplessness. And if you look around, who doesn't have those feelings right now? Who's not desperate? I mean, there's such look, we don't want any of these problems to happen, but this is the world we live in. There's always going to be something going on, which can either mean it's never the right time to ask, and so you'll never grow as an organization and you'll never grow your impact if that's the case. Mm-hmm. Or there's another reality. The more crazy things that happen, the more the need is, the greater our sense of importance that now must be the time for us to act, to contribute in some way. Yeah. And if we must contribute to a solution, who better to hear from than someone with a solution on how you can heal the world?
Right.
If it's in your part of the world. And look, not every nonprofit is feeding hungry children. Some of them are clubs, like a country club, and they have an annual appeal to do improvements on your establishment, or to build a pool, or to create or to get digital media coaching, so that you can disseminate your message in a more powerful, scalable way, whatever your needs are. That still has a person who wants to make an impact in the world exactly that way. They want to make an impact in the world.
There are a lot of organizations that I've talked with over the last couple of weeks and even months who look at their messaging and they say the following thing, which is I think we need to bring up right now, because you kind of started the conversation, which is there are other organizations that deserve money more than we do. And that is such a horrible place to mentally be when you're a nonprofit organization. Not to say that there aren't important organizations to support, more like you suggested, but the reason donors support your organization, the reason they had before this pandemic crisis, was it made them feel good. Right. And so to say internally that we don't think that we are now as great as others, or we don't find that we are needed as much as other things, is now telling your donor base that
we were never important.
Right. So you have to, that's part of the mindset that we started talking about right away, which is this limiting belief mindset, which is we don't deserve it. Yes, you do. And there's tons of donors over the course of the years of however long you've been a nonprofit organization that supported you because they believed in it. So they need to believe now because they want to find a way to help. They feel familiar with your organization, and so you have to give them a roadmap to do so. You do that through storytelling and impact stories and how they can help, et cetera, et cetera. And that communication is really important, and you cannot sit on your hands. The organizations that sit on their hands right now are 3 months behind. And
it's so like an empowering coach, like an empowerment coach.
Yes.
You must be, right? And I know that you are someone who breathes life and fire into other people. And that is part of why you're so great for nonprofits to work with, especially if they're having confidence issues.
Yes.
Because you naturally have this strength to inspire and bring out the passion in other people. You mentioned impact stories. Mm-hmm. And I want to ask you a question about internal communication within nonprofits before we transition into social media and external communication. Impact stories are a great way for us to talk about both, because they can be used to help those people on your phone lines to remind them, yes, you're important. Here's exactly how. Here's a story of impact. Can you share an example of someone that you know or have worked with who has used impact stories to inspire people inside their organization?
So this is such a good question, because a lot of organizations right now are overly stressed, right? They are, we don't know what to do. We don't know where our funding's coming from. We don't even know kind of how to get along. They're scrambling. They're wearing 10,000 different hats. And so you're trying to tell success stories and you're forgetting about your frontline workers making the impact day to day. Your frontline workers need to understand the positive awesomeness that you do every single day as much as your external folks do, because if they don't buy into it, they're not be able to even communicate internally why they're even showing up every day. What's the purpose of this?
And then you get a phone call like this. Hi, it's Justin Douglas. I'm so sorry to bother you right now. I know another Black man has just lost his life and there's coronavirus. And a lot of koalas died in Australia. But if you don't mind, I'd like to ask you for some money.
Your enthusiasm, your enthusiasm internally needs to be turned up to an 11 right now. And you need to so leadership and internal stuff needs to really concentrate on what's the success out of the gate. And it's engaging your staff, because they're right now as confused and scared as everybody else is. Mm-hmm. It engages your staff to say, hey, remember what great stuff we do? Yeah, we need to start talking about that a lot. Yeah. Nonprofits are notorious for not telling success stories because they think it's bragging. And we're internally always like worried about like, are we bragging about things? No, you're just telling about how awesome you are. And you need to do that, because if you forget that, then you don't show up to work with your A game on any time. You have to do that. And if you have your staff as enthusiastic as you do in the development office or the front office or your executive team or your board about the good work you do, now you're running on the same cylinders. Now you can kind of grow your role. It also engages your staff in order to come up with the stories internally that you get to then refocus, right? So
and what do you do with those? Share them on social media.
Yes. So you need to engage your internal staff as well as you do your external conversations with your donors, because that's where you get the same sort of belief that you're doing great things, but now you're doing it internally. And so you're creating the momentum internally that you need to then refocus out to do your social media and all your outward things. So it's extremely important that you get your internal stories right, engage your audience, and now engage your staff. And you're engaging your staff by asking what the great things you're doing. Then helps turn that mindset around, going, yeah, you know what? We do awesome things. Damn it. Let's do these, right?
Show up and do even more of it.
Yep.
Do good better.
Yes.
How about that? There's actually a hashtag for that, and probably a company page that you can find. Do good better. What's your website?
dogoodbetterconsulting.com. You can find all that kind of fun stuff there. And we've got a whole bunch of fun. Yeah.
Okay, and then we're going to talk about social media and scaling out, sending out those messages, sending out those impact stories, and becoming this sort of net that you cast, that you see what kind of little fish get caught in, or whatever the vegan version is if you need it. Say things, dogoodbetterconsulting.com.
Yep.
So why consulting work for you before we go into social media? Like, why is this the format of work that you want to do rather than working in-house as a development manager?
When my last sort of full-time job in as a professional corporate fundraising guy was I was asked to coach a couple of small nonprofits for some local foundations who were trying to get people who knew what they were doing to talk to some folks who didn't. I fell in love with that light bulb moment where people go, "Oh, this is a lot easier than I thought it was going to be," or "Oh, that makes sense." And I fell in love with it. I was obsessed. And as somebody who'd been doing it for a long time, those things never really occurred to me. Those simple, small 101 things that I took for granted because I'd been doing it for so long.
Internalize it. It becomes so normal for you. And other people, I call them aha moments.
Yes. Yep. It's exactly. I fell in love with it. And so I realized that I could make a bigger impact on the world working with multiple organizations, multiple individuals, rather than just a solo group. And even though it was like the best job I ever had, I left the best job I ever had, working with the best clients ever. And the impact we made was wonderful.
What was it?
It was working with small children and young adults with developmental disability and delay. Like severe disabilities, hard births that the only reason that some of these kids survived was through miracle by God or miracle medical stuff. But we had an organization that helped build independence regardless of how they were born.
Wow.
And what a wonderful way to walk up and down the hall and you see a kid whose doctor at birth said they would never walk or talk ever. And they're running down and they're running down the hallway. What a perspective builder. And
what
yet
perspective builder, I mean, for your prospective clients, if there are nonprofits who are watching this, if I'm in your shoes, and I have been, on the boards of different theater companies, including the Seeing Place in New York City, and formerly their outreach manager in New York City when I was there as a company member, if you're at a nonprofit and you're asking yourself, I need someone to help me because I know I'm picking up the phone and I'm thinking, I can't ask people for anything right now. People don't want to hear from me right now. Look at all the good works that those people are doing over there. Look at the pressing issues that are more important than us over here. I know I need help because I'm saying these things to myself when I pick up the phone. Mm-hmm. If I'm that person, who do I want with me on my team? Like not just someone to cheer me on, but someone who is personally driven beyond the impact of helping children with developmental disorders to find independence in life. More impactful to you than that is finding me, this person with the nervousness on the phone, to have an aha moment. Mm-hmm. Someone who is that driven to get that kind of impact. Who could you better find to help you than someone with that attitude?
Attitude's a lot of things. I had a former boss say that enthusiasm isn't going to raise enough money. And I was like, nope, no, it is. Because if you're not enthusiastic, if you do not believe in what you're doing, if you don't wake up every day and choose to be overtly positive about the impact that you're about to make, mm-hmm. You're doing your donors a disservice. You're doing the impact and the boots on the ground individuals who are working on the programs a disservice. And you have to make that choice. You have to make the choice to say, I'm going to be an enthusiastic champion of my mission today. Every dang day I pick up the phone. And that's attitude. Yeah. Yeah.
Can you measure belief? Can you set belief goals as an organization and say, how bought in are my people, internal and external?
Yes. I think you can. And I think you can do it by how people perceive you, those who know you for a long time and those who have no idea what you do. What I think if somebody says that you pick up the phone and you've been emailing people all over the place, but you finally pick up the phone and you talk to somebody and they say the following, you're exactly who I thought you would be personality-wise. Yeah. You're doing the right thing. Or they look at your website.
All the time.
Yeah, exactly. That's the ultimate compliment I think you can get as somebody who is a champion for your organization. And really it is it's being that champion, I think, that is so important. And I think you need to concentrate on that every day. It's exhausting. Believe you me, as somebody who's done fundraising in every capacity whatsoever, it is exhausting work and it sucks sometimes.
Yeah, it can.
It sucks a lot out of you. But the benefit that you get is knowing and going to sleep every single night saying that you put your best foot forward, raising the most amount of money to help the most amount of people who can't do it themselves.
Right.
And that, regardless of whatever organization you work at, is it theater? Is it art? Because art is exponentially important right now.
Yes.
When we get through this pandemic, you're going to look back and say the arts saved us. Whether it was watching a show on TV, listening to music that resonated, that made me happy, that I could get up. It's watching a show. It's missing musicals. It's missing plays. It's reading a book. Everything that you did to make yourself feel great at the end of this pandemic, you're going to associate with art. That's important,
right?
That's important. Exactly.
Image. So let's talk about social media and using it as an art form, as a storytelling art form, and telling those impact stories, artfully in one way or another. What should people know in terms of using social media to attract attention to their nonprofit without seeming attention-seeking?
Great question. Authenticity is going to win the day every single time. So whether you are kind of crazy and out there and outside of the box, if you're authentic about it, it won't feel like you are trying too hard, right? If that's part of you. Now, this pandemic and this environment in which we are fundraising now and forcing us to go online all the time gives you the ability to think outside of the box and think a little crazy and come up with those ideas that might not have worked in person. And here's the best part. You're going to be given a lot of grace for what works and what doesn't.
That's true.
Nothing, right? You don't understand. Like, people are going to say, you know what? Hell, it didn't work, but at least they tried. And those who are sitting in the corner waiting for this to blow over are going to go, man, I wish I tried that. And they're going to feel bummed out because you had the gall and the audacity to try it.
Like
and
what?
So,
tell a story.
But let's just say, so I'll give you an example of what we did.
Okay.
We have a fundraising conference every year in person, and we have it in sort of here in Fargo, North Dakota. We had it scheduled for 7 days from now. We bumped it up 3 months in order to service the nonprofits who were desperate for trying to figure out what the hell they were going to do for the rest of the year. Wow. The audacity to say we're going to put on a full conference, an 8-hour conference, and we're going to put it virtually with zero sort of idea if this was going to work was awesome.
And move it up by 3 months.
Bump it up by 3 months.
Sooner. Just in case people are like,
We planned it in 5 weeks rather than 4 months. Like, it was that's terrifying. So we knew that even if we had a technical hiccup, we were going to be given the grace to know at least we tried and we were putting our best foot forward in order to help the most amount of people. Yeah. If you have an idea to start a podcast, if you have an idea to start a video vlog on the services that you're doing, boots on the ground, and the impact that you're making even during a pandemic, and you don't know how to edit or do a podcast or interview properly, it's okay. It's okay. Try it.
Look at the news. Like, watch the news. They're in their living rooms. People are doing American Idol in their living rooms. And they look like living rooms with sparkly lights, I mean, come on. If they can do it, certainly you have grace to not be perfect.
I know.
And furthermore, you're interesting now. You might not be so interesting 4 months from now, but by then you'll have had all of this interest in you that you'll have had great conversations. Those conversations will make you more interesting later.
Yeah, you're exactly right.
I don't know, like, what you're doing now. Like, what is your organization doing? What's happening for the, homeless puppies or dying people of some kind? Like, I'm not minimizing it.
No.
Talk like this, New Yorker, the dying people in various categories, diseases, violence, poverty, hunger, all of the things that make people die sooner than they should.
Yeah. And that's the important thing, is that people need to know that if you go radio silent, and if you just post the regular things that you've been, every Friday we do this, and it's the same tone, you aren't self-aware enough to say that we can do something different and fun and interesting to engage, people are going to notice that. And they're going to go back to the authenticity piece. Did you do it with a gusto and authentic, mission-driven things?
To just post
all the fun words for you today. That's really my goal. Is that
all of them? I was so excited to talk to you because of your gusto for what you do. I mean, forget about the fact that my company is Say Things Better and yours is Do Good Better. You just want everybody to say things, do good, just do better.
Yes. Oh, this is too good.
Perfect, but it can definitely be better.
Yeah.
So what are some of the reasons why you know it can be better? What are you seeing people doing besides feeling nervous to ask or saying what we do isn't important and forgetting the impact of what their mission actually is? What are some other things that nonprofits are doing that are not good enough? How else should they know that they could be doing better?
One of the things that I'm finding is frustrating is organizations who are just canceling events and just waiting for this thing to blow over rather than either converting it virtually or doing something different to maintain the momentum they had or whatever they've traditionally done as fundraising. Most groups are reliant on some sort of special event to get them from point A to point B. It's just super important that they get right. Them canceling out of the gate to say that we know that there's a need, we just don't think that it's the right time and putting a pause. I'll give you an example. A client of ours that we had locally, local university, who decided to make their gala virtual, raised $250,000, 50,000 more than they've ever made in their entire life for in-person event, and they raised $250,000, 50 grand more in one night.
Wow.
Now, the reason they worked at this is because it forced them to have conversations with donors about what they were going to do to go virtual, how they were going to go virtual, what it meant to them to say, we'd love you to participate. This is something that we need to do and gather the space. It forced
the troops, getting buy-in and connection.
Yeah, it forced you to fundraise. It forced you to have conversations. It forced you to build relationships. And all of a sudden, they had all this revenue lined up, ready to go for the event to hit up.
Almost like it just fell from the sky, but like the sky is just relationships.
Yes. Yeah. So one of the things that's frustrating and that I think you should do is continue on doing the things that got you to where you were in the first place. This is a pandemic. Yes. There's crap going on all over the world. Yes. But people you serve matter. The donors who have supported you all this time matter. And you can't abandon them for the convenience of waiting it out.
Right.
Because you're going to lose your momentum, you're going to lose your gusto, you're going to lose all of the good things that you did, and you're going to wait for someone else to fill the gap of need that you have now abandoned the space in. And so what if I beg people to do is, even if it's not exactly the same way, figure out a way to do it virtual, figure a way to engage your donors, figure out a way to engage your supporters, potential supporters, and everybody else in the community to talk about what great things you are doing consistently. Don't sit on your hands. That's the one thing that I can give you a piece of advice. Don't sit on your hands. Do something.
Don't sit on them. Type with them.
Yes. Do a video. Do an audio cast. Do whatever you want to do, whatever medium it is. Do an art project. Do a thing, whatever that is.
Take a quarantine selfie and send it to a big donor and be like, "This is me today. What about you?"
Hope you're doing okay as this, right? Are you having as bad of a hair day as I am? Like, that's a thing. I think also people forget that they aren't the only ones who are experiencing this sort of trauma of being cut off from everybody else in their personality or uprooting their normal life, right? Everybody else is experiencing the same thing. And I think we internalize it and say, we must be the only people on earth thinking about this, or we must be the only people suffering.
I'm so petty because I am like missing my country club lounge chair and my signature cocktail and my cabana boy who knows exactly, how often to keep them coming.
It's not the case. Yeah.
Right. Okay. Then like, you're not the only one. I promise you, if I'm as petty and I'm mission driven.
Correct.
And,
yes.
So is Justin Douglas and so is Patrick Kirby. We are all just as petty as you on the inside. Like, we all want our little simple pleasures in life. People who have a spare $5,000, $10,000 to donate to your organization are probably also wanting the same things that you do. Yeah. So let's talk about some of those like less noble pursuits before we take final questions and sign off. People have, let's say it's like ASO, American Youth Soccer Organization. This is something where what they do is have live, in-person, physical contact through sporting events, through soccer games for kids. Mm-hmm. What can they be doing to provide value for the people that they serve now? And let's use this as a specific example because people can extrapolate for themselves, for their organization, or they can reach out to you directly.
Yeah. Well, one of the things is you need to train to play soccer, right? You need to practice, you need to do all these things. So having an organization use coaches to do virtual training that you can then teach people to do in their own yards, in their own homes, in their own environment, where they don't have to go and interact with people. If that's really, you're not comfortable doing physical distancing in that case, there are still ways to do it. You cannot get better without practice. You cannot get better without training. And so if you're an organization that's providing a litany of ways that people can keep them in shape, they can develop them skills, whatever the case may be. Now you're giving value to say, this might not be in a game scenario, but when you reach the field now, when everything else sort of calms down and we're allowed to go play games, maybe with now people watching, exactly. Right. But if you wanted to maintain that skill, if that's something that you're great at, it's fine. And funding those things, there are kids who rely on that to feel great about themselves mental health wise.
Absolutely.
Right? It's the thing that they do well. And if you take that thing that they do well away, and there's no interaction with that, where else are they going to go? What else are they going to do? Are they going to feel great about themselves? They're going to feel not great about themselves? You can make a mental health connection to that. Yeah.
It's something that you probably don't want them filling their, dark place with.
No, not at all. And you empower parents then to still engage with them doing soccer skills that makes their kids happy, that they get to engage with as well. So regardless of your organization, there are ways to link how you can actually engage your donors and talk about your impact and make sure that you have a positive route to have them donate significant amount of money because they know it helps on a long-term and a short-term basis too.
That's great. You can tell those impact stories of games that have been played. And for example, for this, let's talk about ASO. And I'm going to have to find someone there to send this to. And I don't know why they're the ones that popped into my head. I have no relationship with them yet, but I guess now I will.
Now we will, yes.
Right. So I'm going to reach out to them with this. Let's say they have stories of like epic wins. Some 8-year-old did some trick shot, some 7-year-old ran a really like powerful block. Can you tell I don't speak soccer, right? Like, but like someone the goalie caught the ball because they had unbelievable flexibility, and talking about these things in pro games, giving kids still those like role models to look up to, calling them out from professional sports teams and saying like, here's the impact and here's our way, whether it's one of our games or a pro game, here's the tool that they used. We'll teach it to you today, and continuing to equip those people. And then they won't end up like our current baseball players, who are not in baseball shape. So they're like, yeah, actually, we've been not stretching and not working out this whole time.
Right.
Come on, why not?
Right.
Are you not high performance athletes? Let me just take a moment to admonish them. But yeah, that's a great example of providing value to an audience that has nothing to do with saving dying babies.
No, but there are people who are passionate about soccer and nothing else, and that's what they do. Yeah, I know, and it's okay. Yeah, exactly. Yep.
Those conversations, those relationships, the people that you serve, keeping them in mind. What are their needs? And especially what are their needs that we can help them with?
Yes.
And asking, having conversations, scaling out your messages of impact stories. I think we've covered a whole ton. So let's get like a boogie with gusto. And just like so happy that you came here today. Thank you. I'm not seeing any final questions that are relevant to the episode in the comments here. So do you have any last thoughts that you want to leave our audiences with?
I think if you have the capacity to give, and whether that's time, talent, or treasure, whatever that is, find an organization to fall in love with, go volunteer, go do as much good as you can possibly do. And if you don't have money, spread a story. If you don't have the ability to spread a story, volunteer. If you don't have the ability to volunteer, do something nice for somebody and lift up some other individual organization. There are ways that you can make impact within the nonprofit world that don't necessarily need a $5,000 or $10,000 check. Those help. And that's great. Yeah. And if you know somebody who needs to be connected to an organization to make massive impact, help them, because they're going to feel a whole hell of a lot better donating their money to something they believe in and they're passionate about. You can be one of those connectors too. And hey, volunteer, go be on a board, do fun things and spread the good word. And
yes, all of that.
All
do
that.
Good better sometimes just means being intentional about doing good at all.
Yes.
So
love it.
Stop sitting on your hands and go and do good better. find Patrick Kirby you can find the hashtag Do Good Better. You can find his company page, Do Good Better. You can find Patrick Kirby on LinkedIn. You can even filter Patrick Kirbys who are connected to Lila Smith. And then you'll find him because he's the only one. And I refuse to connect to any other Patrick Kirby without a really good excuse. You connect to me now?
I love it.
And go to dogoodbetterconsulting.com for more of this, especially if you're a nonprofit who's feeling uncomfortable about asking, because really what you're doing is offering people a way to be part of a solution that matters to the kind of world they want to live in. So yes, thank you, all of you watching, for what you do. Thank you, Patrick, for joining me. We're going to end our broadcast and we'll see you soon.
Thank you.